and welcome to another episode of All That Film. Hey guys, welcome to a bonus episode of All That Film. This is the first time we're doing this, but there were just two great films that came out this weekend. Two really, what's the word for it?
Great?
Not great, like
Two
in the pop culture zeitgeist of film people. Two colossal giants that people are talking about. So we wanted to have further, more expansive thoughts on Midsommar. I'm your host, Hey. I'm joined today with Evan, Austin,
Heyo, folks.
and first time Josh. He's
Hello.
One of my friends. And then we also have JD.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. But if you guys want to check out JD, he has a YouTube channel, JD Thompson. So check that out. He has great videos, especially the Hayao Miyazaki video. It's one of my favorites. So
Thank you very much.
Out. Yeah, no problem. But let's get into Midsommar. Yeah. So JD, I'll let you go first. Just sort of general thoughts of how you felt about this movie. What you would give it a rating out of, or anything like that. But spoiler free for now, and then we'll get right into spoilers because that's what people are probably looking for.
Sure. Well, one of the first things I noticed was that it is sort of slow. It's a pretty long movie, which I didn't honestly expect. The cinematography is amazing, as you would expect. The lead actress is phenomenal. I also, one thing I wanted to point out is the choreography for some of these scenes seems unreal, almost like visual effects are used in some of them, how down to a T they are. But as a whole for the story, I feel like it kind of falls apart in certain areas. There's a lot of things where they just kind of go over it once and it's kind of out of the, I don't know. There's just some things that I feel like they could have fleshed out a lot more.
They don't like reference that back or anything. Like they don't bring it. It doesn't come back up in
Yes,
the story.
Exactly. There's a few instances of that. I feel like there's a few plot holes maybe, and just some more things I wish I had actually seen come out of the movie that they mentioned, but they don't really show that much of. And we can get more into that when we go over spoilers. But those are some of my general thoughts, I guess. I'd maybe give my enjoyment of the movie a higher rating than I would if I was just objectively looking at it from a filmmaking point of view of just, the craft. But I enjoyed it.
Sweet. Evan, what are your thoughts?
I really love this movie. The photography is great. The way he uses the camera. Almost every performance I really enjoyed, really impressed by some of the emotion they're showing. Emotion that has to be performed throughout this movie that's good. I assume he built almost that entire set on his own. The fantastic set design. I love like he said, the choreography. There's just lots of things happening. Really good effects. Just very fantastic movie. Some people complain about the story. I actually really like the story. I think it gives you a lot to think about. It just, instead of completing the arc, it leaves a lot of ambiguity. But that's ambiguity in stories often lets you think about implications of things on your own. I just loved it.
All right, Austin, what are your thoughts?
I'm kind of in between them. I liked it a lot. Obviously, I think it unfairly gets kind of put up against Hereditary just because it's the same director, but I get it. I think the color throughout the movie was incredible. I agree with Evan and JD that the cinematography was outstanding. I thought Florence Pugh was exceptional in the movie. The opening of the movie was fantastic. Probably haven't seen a better one this year, maybe in the last few years. Overall, the acting was pretty good. There are some problems here and there, but we'll get into that in a second. Overall, I like the movie a lot.
Sweet. All right, then last person, Josh, what you think?
Well, generally, I agree with JD. I think my movie watching experience was really good, and if I'd been asked to rate it right after leaving the theater, I would give it a higher score than I'd give it now. I've thought about it a little bit more, and I think that the story could have been a little bit tighter. I think there are a few things in the movie that you could remove and the movie wouldn't change at all, which means they're unnecessary. And I think that there are some plot points they could have capitalized on in an interesting way that they just didn't, which is a little unfortunate. That being said, there's some class. I mean, I know we only have 2 Aster movies to talk about, but he does some stuff in the movie that he did in Hereditary that I think is amazing, and I'm glad he did it again in this movie because he does it really well in a unique way. Say more about that in a bit, but like everybody said, the visuals are amazing. The music I really liked, just the sound, I guess, in the movie generally is really good. It has one of the best opening 15 minutes, I think, of any movie I've seen in a very long time. But yeah, overall, I like it. It's a really good movie. I definitely watch it again. It's a movie I want to think about more, and I think to really have complete thoughts about it, it kind of demands a second watch. So I'm definitely going to watch it a second time at least.
So I guess I'll just add my thoughts. So JD knows we've already mentioned beforehand. If you guys want my review, like of general thoughts of this, I already posted it on YouTube separately from this discussion. I gave it a 4 out of 10. Some things have changed. Me and Josh actually talked after, right after I recorded that. He said, it's a little weird that you released a review so early. I was like, I just thought, I already knew about this movie and wouldn't change anything. Certain things have weighed a little bit higher. I think part of what this film for me, part of what makes this film struggle for me is I directly compare it with Wicker Man from the 70s. And again, like you were saying, JD, this film is long. Wicker Man's like 90 minutes. And I think going in with the expectation of such a tight film that is Wicker Man was unfair to Ari Aster. And definitely something on a second watch I have to sort of throw out the window. I also think part of the reasoning, if we're talking like things that can sway me, and I'm being like bluntly honest, you don't know this, JD, but my friend group hates on me for giving Hereditary a 7 out of 10.
Is that a low score to them?
They think it's way too low. I think Hereditary is a really good movie, and I think part of like there got to a point where I knew you guys were gonna like this movie, and I wasn't, and I think that bothered me even more because I was like, they're gonna make fun of me for like giving this movie a like 3 out of 5, and that like affected me. So I'll admit it, like things, personal things affect me.
As they do everybody.
But we can get right into spoilers. I don't know. If we're kicking things off, I actually want to go with one of Josh's points he made. The beginning is absolutely fantastic. It's incredibly well shot. It's put together. It's tense, and it's probably the best thing of the movie. But I just love that the looming shot they go to when like the police are there, and like, oh no, like bad things have happened in this family. But I will say, I don't think that that great start affects the rest of the film as much. Like if you took that out, I think there's only small moments that wouldn't necessarily affect the film if that wasn't there, which is a little bit, disappointing because it could have been really, really important. I
have to agree. Like I feel like they really hit you really hard over the head at that beginning scene, and then they barely bring up her grief for I mean, they do bring it up obviously, and they have those little cuts where we're into spoiler territory now, right? We can talk about this stuff.
Yeah, all spoilers. Yeah, we're into the heat
where they have all these scenes where they kind of intercut her parents and her siblings, and it's almost like a result of a drug trip, but there's nothing. The only time you even hear any of their voices is over a voice machine in the very beginning. It feels very impersonal, and it's almost like it's forgotten. Like once you're even halfway into the movie, it's almost like it's forgotten, and they don't even.
It's not even there anymore. And I think it would make it even more important for that character of Pele, right?
Pele?
That's the
Pele? Yeah.
I think that would make his motivation even more important, that he's sort of pushing her like, no, you're far, like no one's going to accept you like this cult will, like they're a warm group, no matter, all the terrible things that have happened to you. Like he's trying to sway her into this group.
Yes.
I just didn't buy that as much when it's not weighing on her as much. But you three feel free to chime in.
I'm gonna disagree. I think the beginning looms over the whole movie, but it just because it doesn't directly like bring in the parents or the sister, it's more about how kind of tragedy can affect their relationship. I think the relationship between her and her boyfriend, the way that how much emotional support is one supposed to do, that can strain a relationship, especially if another party thinks they don't need that back and they're just giving everything to the other person. And I think that the first 15 minutes is felt through the whole movie because of that. She constantly is trying to fit in, or she has lots of breakdowns. Maybe they're because of drugs, but a lot of things are felt. And I just think that's a very good, realistic relationship that keeps together through the whole movie.
Yeah, I want to talk about this opening because even outside of its relationship to the rest of the movie, just how well it's done in and of itself, I think is amazing. Particularly, he does something in this opening that is, I think, obviously a callback to a scene in Hereditary, which is he shows the characters grieving in a way that I think is really honest and that you don't get in other movies. I think a lot of other movies try to capitalize on like funeral scenes and stuff, and like memory flashbacks in a really romanticized way. But in Hereditary, there's that, I think it's like an 8-second shot of, I mean, it's really short, of the mom, like basically writhing on the ground after her daughter has died, just saying like, just kill me, like I don't want to live anymore. And you get that in this too. It's like a 5-second shot. Danny's like laying on her. What's the boyfriend's name again? I actually forgot. Whatever.
Christian.
She's laying on Christian. Yeah, that's it. She's laying in. I think she's like laying across his lap, just screaming. Basically, those shots are really, really amazing. I can't think of any other movies that do that as boldly. I think, and I like the switch up because in Hereditary, obviously, it's part of the core of the movie because it's a family drama. This is the romantic bent on it. And I agree with Evan. I think it is present throughout the movie. And I think the way that it's present is not in her relationship to this cult or this group of people, but obviously to her boyfriend. I think the strain on the relationship is obvious. The relationship clearly isn't going well, but Christian doesn't know what to do because she just suffered this horrible tragedy. You don't want to abandon that person, and that's the emotional disconnect, right? Like, I don't know. I felt like it was present. I do think it connects to the rest of the movie pretty well, even if it's implicit. I think it's really easy to underestimate the amount of character development that happens in like a 10-second scene like that. Because I don't know. I felt like it was there, but even just this scene itself. Pretty flawlessly done. I don't think I would change anything about the first 15 minutes, regardless of the rest of the movie.
Could I mention one thing about?
Yeah, go for it.
About that scene too, where she's got that almost wailing of crying of experiencing this tragedy, and they kind of bring it up again with later in the film with all these kinds of group therapy where she discovers that later that Christian is mating with another woman. And then she has that group that basically does the same thing she did right at that scene. And it's very interesting to see how that develops too.
Yeah, I agree. I think I know what part you're referring to, JD, when after she sees Christian and
when they're
she's
yelling in her face.
Yeah, and they try to harmonize with her screams.
Yes.
I like that. I don't think Hayden liked that part.
Not a big fan.
I really like that scene.
It's very odd. But, I mean, that whole part is very odd.
It's one of those things, again, like at the end of my review, because a lot of people were like, I can't believe you gave this like a 4 out of 10. I can't believe you gave this. But I still said at the end of the review, I would recommend this film to a ton of people. I just don't think like it's for me. Like I scoured Letterboxd to find reviews that were the same score as me. There's not too many. Like a lot of people love this. And I think where we go a little different is I think the characters that as soon as they get to that to the cult group, like in the city, I forget what the city's called, but as soon as they get there, they all get really dumb. And I think in Hereditary, like all the character motivations and choices make sense. If you even going back a second time, it's still correct, and like all of them have like reasoning behind their decisions. And here, I think rethinking about it, it's possibly that the drugs were affecting their mind a little bit more. If that's where you side with it, I can sort of understand how you throw that stuff out the window a little bit. But I just thought it was super dumb the way like all of these characters were sort of just okay with some of the events that were happening, especially when one of the friends disappeared and then the boyfriend was just, like, obviously the boyfriend's a bad person. They just went too far where he's like comically a douche. And I don't know, again, if that's like drug related or whatever, or I don't know. A lot of the characters didn't work with me, specifically his group of friends besides the Swedish one. But
maybe this is like a good time to talk about the friend group, actually, because I think some of us disagree on how good those characters fit in the movie. And so I'll just say here, this is one of the parts that I was referring to earlier that I think there's a lot of superfluous writing that could have been cut and the movie wouldn't change.
Are you talking about the thesis?
Yeah, that's one of the things. Like the two guys like competing, they both want to do a thesis on this group. First of all, how old are they? What do they mean they're writing a thesis? Are they undergrads? They look like they're 27. It didn't look like it. I didn't buy it.
I
was
thought
like,
they were like 28. That's why I was a little.
What do you mean you're writing? What are you talking about? And I thought it was just unnecessary. There's obviously already a point of tension in the friend group, and that's the fact that Danny is there with them. They have stuff to bicker about already. I didn't feel like they needed this whole thing. And I was thinking, like, if you completely cut out all of the thesis stuff, what would you lose? And the only thing I think it does is it sets up, I don't remember the character's name, but the guy who plays JD in The Good Place.
I haven't seen The Good Place, but I'm pretty sure that's Josh.
Oh, no, that is Josh.
Yeah.
Okay. So the only thing it sets up is it gets him in that room later in the movie.
But he would have gone in the room regardless, I think.
What he's like taking pictures because he like wants to use it for his thesis or something, and then that's where he dies. That's the only thing it does in the movie. There's nothing else that matters, I think, for it.
I think it gives him a good reason just to be okay with strangeness. Like after seeing the initial jump off the cliff, which was also just a great scene, but after seeing that, some of the people are like the other two characters. They're like, we need to get out of here.
I feel like Josh was like, oh shit, this is clearly just part of their like culture. I guess this is stuff I have to be.
Then they try to kind of reason with it, like, oh no, this is just a culture thing. Like they think it's wrong for old people to live past 72. They just think that's not okay. So they try to rationalize it. It gives them more of a reason to stay.
I don't disagree with that, actually. I think that's fair, but I just feel like that could have been accomplished in a way that fits the characters more. Like, don't make them look so old and like they're working on a thesis. Just say he's an anthropologist. Like he's an adult. He has a job. Just say that. And like, I feel like that's enough. I don't know. I didn't buy the whole.
Well, you can work on PhDs for a while. You can get up to like 25, 26, right?
Those are dissertations.
Those are not theses.
No,
technically not. That's kind of a nerdy thing to. That's probably that might
Josh
be what
just
they
wrote
meant.
his
But
thesis.
okay, all right. Look, I knew this would happen. No, I don't want to.
80 pages.
All right.
If you want to check the link.
Enough of this. We're not linking anything.
But yeah,
but that's fair. That is one time. But even that is just like you could just have one of the characters say that. Like you don't have to do this whole competing.
I think
the competing thing was a bit weird.
Yeah, I agree.
There's another thing that kind of adds that I brought up to my girlfriend, and it was the part where Connie and her husband or boyfriend go missing, and everyone is basically like, there's like they don't barely even pay attention when they're like, well, I took him to the train station, it's no big deal.
Yeah.
But whenever I forget the main character's name, whenever she goes to Christian, he's talking to an elder about something very. It's very it's like a minor thing, but then she says something about where is Connie, and then he's like, oh, I don't know, that's kind of weird, and then he just goes right back to talking about.
He goes back to talking. Yeah, I was like, they are going way over the top with some of this stuff. Like, I feel like if that was toned down a little bit more, then I would have been like pro the movie in a lot of ways. Because I thought as soon as someone goes missing, like the way they played that off,
he's not missing though. I think it's weird to us because we know this is a weird death cult.
Why would they not?
They think this
How
is
would
a
you not
happy
think
loving.
anything of that after they're like, we need to get out of here. We need to get out of here.
And then he's like,
Why would they
were
leave
like,
separately though? That's
couldn't fit in the car. They were trying to do the stuff. They were like, oh,
See, I actually didn't buy that either.
Yeah.
They're like, he not only did he leave without the girl, but he didn't tell anyone.
yeah. They're
He
about
just
to get
dipped.
married.
Yeah.
And he was established to be a good boyfriend. Like I know he wasn't given that much development.
So he's talking about the English couple.
Simon.
Simon.
Yeah, Simon obviously wasn't like a bad person. They looked like they were decently in love. Also, the bit I thought this is what you're talking about, where little parts can matter. I thought as soon as like what made me put my guard up is when their Swedish friend was like, "Oh yeah, me and Connie actually dated before them and Simon." She was like, "No, we didn't," and I was
Yeah.
like, "Okay, something's for sure up here." Like,
Well, going into it, we know it's a horror movie about a weird cult. And we, with like background info, we know that Pele is going to have something to do with it, right? But that thing wasn't too weird to me. Like that didn't throw me off guard for any means. Like we know going into it, the characters don't.
I know, but I just feel like there's as soon as like they jump from that cliff, I feel like all the characters are like, I'm out of here. And the problem is that I think is a key omission that Mark just didn't go to that ceremony. Like they were like, oh, why'd you let me sleep in? You're telling me they just let him miss that?
Yeah.
What was with that decision?
he
I
didn't
think
know
if
what it
Will
was.
Poulter's character saw it, he would have yeeted out of there.
Exactly. And I was like, to that, like,
Well, hey,
in my mind, when I see that happening, I'm like, okay, well, he just didn't include him because then you'd have Danny and Mark that are like, oh, we need to go, and then that would be an overwhelming like, oh, we got to get out of here. So I think they only did that just to have the stupid character be like, oh, I slept in.
I think part of the problem with this reasoning of that, like that kind of reasoning is if they're this far, like, or they say like 4 or 5 hours into the countryside in Sweden, I don't think they're getting out of there even if they want to. Like, I don't think they could just be like, let's leave. And,
Right,
like,
they had
be
to
able,
walk.
Be
They
able
had
to
have
leave.
someone
Yeah.
guide them. They needed someone to drive them. And I didn't bring up the whole point of him disregarding the fact that Connie goes missing because it gets brushed off like it's no big deal. But I think it was more of like the thesis competition is almost a reason why he doesn't care so much. He's sort of selfish. He just wants to get this thing done. So he just continues talking to the elders instead of listening to Danny's concerns about where are the people going, whatever.
I guess for like all he knows, she could just be with a group of like the cult people doing like one of the female dances or cooking.
Right.
I think there's reasons if you look for it. Like the reason he didn't go to that ceremony is because he already sat through like an hour-long eating ritual. I think he was just bored.
Maybe,
he was like, I'm
yeah.
gonna go take a nap.
That's a good point that it had
He
it
didn't
right
say
before.
where they were going. He's like, we're going this way now to do another ritual. And he was like, well, that sounds boring.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I know.
Yeah.
It's just you can find reasonings for a lot of it, and then once they get on the drugs, they're terrified. They don't know what's going on. Like he's just kind of when he goes to have sex, I don't even think he completely understands where he is when it's happening. He just really out of it, like with the clap and everything.
Yeah.
That's a good visual touch we haven't talked about. Just the way things move once they're on drugs, slight pulsating flowers and the slight movements really interested me.
I talk about the psychedelics. Yeah, I thought.
Yeah.
I mean, they look really cool. I don't know how accurate they would be depicted as, but I really do like the trip and like what they do with also using that as a story tool, I guess, like with whenever Danny's character runs off and goes into the shed and she closes the door for a brief moment and there's just a face and I think it's her sister,
yeah.
but you can't even really make it out.
I think
But
it is
I
her
like how
sister.
there's a very it's a very sudden thing and like it does feel very trippy. It's I think they did it well.
Another thing that I think, I'll give this movie the credit it deserves for you guys. At the start of the film, it does this really interesting thing where it shows you a ton of visuals that you're just like, oh, okay, these are just like a bunch of rituals and other things they do. But I think it does in a really smart way. It brings those back far enough to where I saw it with my girlfriend and like she didn't necessarily remember that at the beginning they show like a pubic hair like pie that they make And when
Yeah, they
Hera's in
foreshadow
it,
the whole
she's
thing.
yeah. There's just a lot of moments. Like I think that sex scene that Evan was talking about is on. I think it's in the room they're sleeping in. At the start of the film, they see it and they're like, "Whoa, these are weird."
Speaking
drugs.
of that, I actually pointed out this out to Evan. I think during the movie, I said, "Do you see that bear above Danny's bed?" For some reason, like there was a big painting of a bear above Danny's bed at the very beginning of the movie,
Didn't even notice.
and I just felt like something was going to happen with the bear. And then they kept getting foreshadowed.
With the bear that was there.
The bear painting, the bear that was there. I'm sure there was a bear in another painting at like inside the Sweden whatever cult grounds or whatever. But I knew it was going to be something was going to be happen with the bear.
Also, I thought it was a little. I thought the scene could have been reworked a little bit, where the guy's peeing on the sacred tree.
Yeah,
I thought
it was
that
kind of
was
sudden.
stupid. Yeah, and then like it was the thing where he like got immediately like angry at them. They're like, "Oh, why are you getting mad at?" And he stayed like I don't know. I just thought Mark's character was really, really dumb.
I agree.
And just it's something needed to do with Josh and Mark both. I think you can make a better character combining the two. I just think there was nothing like to stand out with both of them, and to have a group of four where only one's bad boyfriend, one's creepy cult guy, and then the other two are ancillary and don't really affect the story in any way, is a little annoying. But
I agree, and I wanted to say something about Will Poulter's character too. Unless I'm remembering wrong, which please correct me if I am, he sort of disappears when they're at the table eating, and one of the girls calls him away,
over.
and he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm out of here." Do we ever see him again after that?
Yes.
Okay.
Well,
Yes,
his
he
body,
gets-
face.
Yeah,
No,
they
that's-
skin
that's
his
him at
face
the end.
and wear.
Yeah, we never see him a lot.
no, guys, he's the naked one that Josh sees. Like they filled him with drugs. Like he has a messed up face. He's the naked one that opens the door. And then there's the guy that does the paintings.
No,
I thought that was
that's
Ruben.
a skin.
Ruben's
There's a
wear-
skin
Yeah,
mask.
he's wearing,
wearing a skin
Will's
mask.
face.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
that's gross.
I thought that was quite obvious actually, because you could see like the
Yeah.
blood around the edges.
I thought he had an allergic reaction to something.
No, that was a
Now-
skin mask.
Now that we're on this topic, can we bring up Ruben's character, the one who writes their Bible? They barely go anything. All they explain is that he's an inbred, an intentionally inbred person, but he's unclouded, so he like basically writes their scripture, and I feel like they barely even flesh that out. I wish
Touch the
I
surface on how cool that idea can be.
I wish they
of,
had
like,
just
them
explained
following.
a little more about that, honestly.
Yeah.
I just think it's. I thought he was gonna do something else because I think he's the one who kills Josh. A couple snippets of disfigured people, but they never come in. But I really like that all these rituals and things that are happening. Every single thing they try to do, they're clearly reading from a book and doing them all based on just what these inbred kind of. I don't know exactly what happening in their mind, but I think it's very interesting that they created everything that's happening.
I agree, but I don't know. I think that when you have all of these characters like sort of weirdly disappearing, like when it happens with Will Poulter's character at the time, you don't even realize that. I mean, it doesn't seem like he's like disappearing. He's willingly going somewhere, and I like that because that's kind of how you would experience it if you were there. If somebody just got called away from the table, you'd be like, "Oh yeah, he's just going to talk to somebody." But I think I wanted there to be like more resolution as to why these things were happening to people.
Well,
Like,
I mean, at the end, I guess they explained like they needed 4 like outsider sacrifices. And
yeah, but
But
why?
they could have gotten anyone. Why did they have to fly people from U.S. to Sweden?
because Pele was a setup for it.
I know, but like I feel like
But that's-
there's
I
a
feel
decent amount of
That's part of
people-
their ritual, though.
But
People
you
go out and
But is
that's
it the
not
people that leave for college that are doing this? Like, I don't know.
No, we don't know. I mean, it's not in the movie. That's my problem. Like, it's never. Also, when I get Josh, he's taking pictures of the book. How much of the book do we get to see? Do we know?
We don't see that.
What
much.
do we know? Anything like?
You see a few pages.
That's what he was saying. Like,
it would
they,
just
they
be
don't explain it too well.
Yeah, like I guess.
Well, we wouldn't be able to read it anyways. Like, it wouldn't be for us to
Well,
understand.
that's why the
anyways.
explanation needs to be there, where they're furthering. Oh, hey, like this is even if it was just like literally, and it goes back to what Josh was saying.
I'm kind
at
of
the
with
start.
Evan on this though. Having some ambiguity on that kind of like.
I don't think it's ambiguity. I think it's an undeveloped story.
Yeah.
There's a like you can't. There's a difference between just not explaining something in your movie, or not even like implicitly giving something like a rationale.
Like it would take 10 seconds
like
to do this.
ambiguity is something you have to build in a movie. It's not ambiguity is not the default. If you don't explain something, you're not just being ambiguous. You might just not be explaining it.
Which part are you talking about again?
I'm talking about like why, like the character who writes the book, what the rituals actually mean, what purpose they serve for the community, why they do. What do they say? Like every 93 years,
Every 90 years.
90
Yeah,
years.
90 years.
Why 90? Like there's so many.
I thought it was weird that they do 90 instead of 72 when they've already set like that clock of importance.
It's just the stuff is just not probed at all. I don't buy it as this is ambiguous. It's like they're at this place, their friends start disappearing, and then later we see them.
Okay, so I have a
something
question
like
for
that.
Hayden because he's clearly like the lowest one here. Would you rather them cut that stuff out or add more? Because you already think it's long.
Yeah, but
Would you rather
I
than
think
like
it
not have
drags
any?
when you have characters like Josh and Mark adding nothing to the story. Where I think if that's developed more, and you literally like you don't even have to make them speak as much. Like you can cut their bits when they're just being dumb, and you can have like them actually asking important questions to this community. Because I don't think I think one of the best parts when they get to the village or when they get to the community, is when they're explaining the life cycle. Because that's giving me like it's keying me into the world, letting me know like the rules and how it operates here. And Josh is right. Like when you don't give context and it doesn't seem like you're purposefully like just being ambiguous, like on your own, then it would literally take 10 seconds for him to be like, see this picture that he drew means this. And that's why we do this. Like that's
Exactly.
all
Yeah, I
I
would have
need.
And it doesn't-
appreciated just
it
something
doesn't-
like that.
Yeah, and it could be something small. Like it doesn't have to be like this page in the book explains why we horribly disfigure people's bodies. It could just be like, here's a picture of something small, and it means this little small
And
thing.
we do this with the crops, or we eat this certain way.
Yeah,
or,
It's
just-
all
but
made up by the incest.
but why?
topic.
But why do the people in the community agree with it if it's just nonsense?
That was always what they. At some point, they decided this
I don't know.
being
I don't buy it.
is unclouded or whatever, and
This
they
is
can make up whatever they want and will do.
this is also a point where I think they didn't take advantage of the characters, because if you're going to do the whole weird thesis thing, like if you're going to be like, there are two people in the group who are academically interested in what's happening here, then you have a perfect setup for a scene where one of them poses like serious intellectual questions about what these rituals mean, why they need the person who writes the book to be intentionally inbred, this kind of stuff. But it's not there. Like, if you want to do those characters, do them, but then let them do what they would actually do in that scenario. They would be speaking to the people who live there and really trying to understand what these things mean. And you could have those scenes explain things to the audience, I think, in a non-contrived way. But they don't do it, it's my thing. Like, if you don't want to explain anything, fine, but don't have characters there who are supposed to be doing research then. If they're doing research, then obviously there would be
Ask
scenes
better
where they learn
questions. Yeah.
stuff. If you want to leave it out, then take that out. But if you're going to have it in, then develop it, I think. I don't know.
Do you guys have any other points, or I can start going into the?
Oh, I thought the special effects were awesome. Like the
That's
gory
true.
special effects. I love blood, as you know. I thought like the face splitting whenever the first lady hits the rock was wild.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
I know Hayden hates shock value, but I love it. Like I love when
I don't hate.
I
shock
love
value.
when my jaw is I can't stop my jaw from dropping because of how crazy.
But they don't really. I don't even find that part shocking. They really just build it all up to be like, oh, they're gonna die.
Yeah, that's true.
I think Ari Aster just
I think
he has some
likes showing
weird
gruesome
imagery.
things.
I love
yeah.
it. I love it. That's what I'm saying.
I'm not.
I'm pro.
It's the same.
I love
I
blood.
mentioned this in my video. David Cronenberg does a lot of the similar things where he shows very grotesque things, and a lot of people are like, "Oh wow, like he's a visionary," and I do not like agree with that same statement. I think Ari Aster is heading down a similar career, at least with me. I'm glad people are loving his works, so I'm not,
That's
here to be
something-
like you're wrong. It's just a personal thing.
We never went over it. That's something we should have said in non-spoilers. I think whether you like this movie, it can very strongly go towards subject matter. There's a large portion of the population who will not be interested in watching an orgy while in another room, people are screaming at each other. They would just be confused,
True.
and stirred,
True.
and grossed out.
Yeah.
And some people like Hayden just that's not what
I'm
they
gonna
would
put this
see.
on the record. I am pro orgy.
Okay.
Jesus.
And Hayden, but scene you said you did like, were there dancing around the thing? That
Yes,
whole-
That's
I
great
love
the
that.
way it's done.
That's the thing
fantastic.
that I think gets me to even a 4 is that I get frustrated with the movie when it
To
gets
even
those
a
peaks.
4.
No,
So it would
but
have been
I
a
mean,
2 without that.
I just mean like if it would have been even more, if it would have been just boring throughout, then I would have been like, oh, whatever, like it's just boring. But it reaches these peaks and then it hits these lows that we're arguing about here. And when you have this dance montage that's making me believe, it's like I can see her going to this cult and like this is a blissful thing. They're bringing her in, like her boyfriend sucks, like.
But they
she's
do
just
that
away
throughout the
from-
movie.
I think that
With
was
her,
the only
anyways.
scene that made
They-
me
they
believe
bring-
that she wanted to stay.
They bring her in and cook with her. After she wins the May Queen, she does this like whole ritual of riding along the.
I'm saying after the post the dance, I can believe that she is there. Before then, I don't see it. Like I think she thinks what's his face is. I need to look up his name.
Christian,
I think she thinks that
Christian, Josh, Mark.
no Pele.
Pele?
I think she
Pele?
thinks Pele's kind of weird at the start, or at least I get like
I
the
think-
feeling he's weird.
I think she was just like, I don't want to talk about this.
Yeah.
He's open with his feelings, and at that point, she was not.
I just meant the way he's like, oh, I remembered your birthday. I painted you this, like all these things, like
Yeah, it's all
Obviously
very
with-
kind of weird.
yeah.
Well, but it shows that he actually cares.
For sure, but he's like it came off to me as manipulative and weird and strange, and it was.
little
But
excessive.
yeah. But I just thought it was again. This goes back to what Josh is saying. You can give like one line where Josh is asking, "Oh, hey, like, how do you guys find your May Queen?" And then maybe you tell me, "Oh, well, actually, we've had a string of May Queens that come in," and say, "Oh yeah, this girl was our May Queen last year. She's from yada yada." And just because it makes no sense for me that this girl that has just joined is the May Queen.
Well,
do
they just
that.
define the May Queen by whoever lasted longest in the dance, right?
I know.
Yeah.
But I
They-
think
they
the
said that.
characters purposely fall to get her to be the May Queen.
Oh yeah, no, that's obvious. They
Yeah.
clearly do. I thought that was blatant.
So why did they do that?
No, that's a good point. Why do they desperately want the May Queen to be an outsider at the same time that the book writer has to be intentionally inbred? Something about insiders and outsiders that obviously matters a lot that they could have pushed more on, I thought.
Yeah.
Can I-
'cause, yeah, go ahead, JD.
Okay, I was gonna bring up. There's this one part that really made me upset because I actually was interested in it, and they never end up going down this rabbit hole. And it's where Danny is about to discover that Christian is making love in this weird orgy thing, and they say, do you want to go meet the May Queen from last year? And then that never happens. We don't even know who it is. And I thought that May Queen would have something important to tell Danny or, reveal something, and they never get there.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts? Am I the
I
only
mean, I don't
one?
even remember that scene because then they go into the like because of so much happens like after that I forgot that's even where they were going. I thought that the female leader that sort of takes over and is like leading both of them these two different places. I thought she gave a really good performance, but she's not in the movie that much.
Yeah, she did.
Yeah, I would have liked that character to have been more involved. Same with Johanna, who is the like father figure in the community. I'm trying to remember his name.
You guys like the performances of the characters you didn't like? I think the performances are all good.
Are you
I thought
talking
Josh
about
and Mark
like?
were
Non-plot hole related, just how they act.
I
Josh
think
and
the
Mark weren't.
performances are good.
I didn't think they were that good.
I didn't think the performances really demanded anything. I mean, the Will Poulter's character doesn't really do anything in the movie. There's the peeing scene, which I actually didn't like that was included. This movie does not need comedic relief. I think it's a serious. I also didn't laugh. I mean, I was like, why is this here?
That's what bothers me. I think Asters struggles like with this film finding like a solid tone to stay on. I mean, he literally goes from like a drug trip like comedy scene where they're like, what day is it? Like, and that's a funny moment. But then it goes immediately to like her going into this bathroom and like freaking out. And there's a way you can make that work. It just, I think
And I think it does.
consistently it doesn't work for
That's
me.
fair.
Is part of the
I
problem.
like mixing genres in general.
Did you
Gotcha.
you didn't feel like them whenever they first got there and tripping on drugs and not realizing that they're not going to see nighttime? You thought it was
That's
funny?
a great. No, I didn't.
I'm
think it was
saying I thought he said it was just funny. Like,
My
what day
audience-
is it?
My audience was laughing very hard.
I didn't think it was funny at all. I thought it was a
It's-
great setup.
Oh, I totally
Yeah,
agree. That was
yeah,
a great.
yeah.
That was a great detail. I thought they were like it's 9 p.m. It's like the middle of the day. What's going on? This is It's really sinister. It's creepy. It's foreboding. I mean, yeah. And also, I think part of the reason I'm a little averse to the idea of comedic relief in this movie is specifically because of our theater experience. There were parts that were very obviously meant to be serious to me, and people in the theater were laughing at them. And I
Me
think part
too.
of that, I think you made this comment, and I agree with you. I think part of it is like discomfort. It is sort of natural laugh when you feel a little uncomfortable, and there are some scenes that are meant to make you feel uncomfortable. But when it actually elicits laughter from people in the crowd, I was like, oh, that's kind of annoying. Like you know what I mean?
And that's another thing that I said, like, oh, hey, part of this viewing could have been hindered by the audience that I was with. I mean, I've said to people, like, the reason Hereditary probably doesn't work for me as well as you guys did, the theater I saw it with was making, like, click noises during the movie, and, like, it was just annoying to me, like, something that can
From
be
Hereditary?
in Hereditary.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I thought you meant they were doing click noises
No.
in Midsommar. I'm like,
That would be
that's a deep cut.
deep pull
Yeah,
for
hopefully the whole
theater goers.
knows.
No, but it's one of those things where, like, it's almost it's almost to the point where I'm like, maybe I don't want to see horror movies in the theaters. The only great experience I've had with a horror movie in the past, like, couple of years, because I think a lot of the people that want to see horror movies early, like, are a weird crowd that, like, just want to be there and laugh at something almost. So, like, they're cool seeing a movie like Annabelle 5, even though it's bad.
I think there's good times during the day to choose to go see horror movies. But you want to see it
I don't want to
theater,
see it
though.
during the day is the thing. I like seeing horror at night.
But this is a
Then
great movie to see
it's
during the day.
spookier. Yeah, maybe. There was actually a guy. I will say, like, I like what Astor's able to do, because I think he still makes his films to where, like, people form a community and talk about things. And I think horror really needs those voices like Jordan Peele, Ari Aster, and then I think I forget his name, but the guy that did The Witch and is doing The Lighthouse later this year. Like, these names that are making, like, a discussion around horror movies, I really enjoy that, because, you know, something like you guys obviously reviewed Child's Play, and even if I saw that film, I don't think I could talk about it more than, like, 4 minutes.
There's not much to say.
Even yeah, because. But I really like, even though I'm not a fan of Midsommar, like, I really like that he's able to pull that out.
Yeah, I think
I would say I would almost argue Midsommar is a good movie just on the merits that we're extrapolating so much stuff out of it. I mean, it is kind of, to me, it feels a little all over the place, and it's definitely not even close to as scary as Hereditary, but there's a lot to talk about from this movie.
Yeah, I completely agree with that, and I think the reference to Jordan Peele is good, because I think both of them, in my view, did similar things between their first and second movies. I thought the concepts for both of their second movies are phenomenal, but I think the writing should have been tighter on both of them.
I think Astor needs to take his time. I think if he was given more time, or just took more time.
Yeah, I agree. This is what I said after I watched Us. There are, I think, in my opinion, some clear problems with the writing, but the concept itself is so good and the recording is so amazing that there's still plenty to talk about. I mean, you could do an hour-long podcast on Us.
We did.
Even though, yeah, well, there we go. Even though there are plenty of problems, I think.
Yeah.
And Midsommar's the same.
And
in my opinion.
that's great that you bring that up, because I actually was going there. I don't know why, and I'm trying to reason with this more, like with discussing with you guys after the movie and stuff like that. I don't know why I give Us a 3 out of 5 and Midsommar a 4. And I'm trying to reason, like, what made, like, the things different, because I think they're very similar in that I just landed on different sides to both of those movies. In that Us, I was like, oh yeah, it has problems, but it's still fun. And I think Midsommar's fun in, like, the horror aspects of it, but I don't know why I came away from it being like, no, I wasn't, like, high on that. Like, there's good things, but overall, I think it's a very messy movie.
I agree with JD on this point. Like, I think when you see a movie that you know so much thought went into it. There's so much to think about and to say and to argue about with the movie. When you see a movie that is that good, I think the bad things stand out more. Like I think as we've been recording, I've been pretty critical of the movie, even though I loved it. But when you see something that's like so close to being a perfectly tight movie, the minor errors stand out. Like you think about things like, oh, the peeing on the tree scene. Why did that need to be there? Even though that's not a big problem with the movie.
Yeah.
And I think the same thing with Us for me, actually. I think it was really good, and it could have been even better. So the little tiny things, and if there's enough of them, then I think it might make you land on the sort of
For sure.
backside.
Do you guys have any other final thoughts, or I can start getting into the final topic?
The pure amount of like great shots. There's everything in the first 15. They do a lot of conversations where the other person's in a mirror. You don't have to break away from the emotions of the characters. Conversation they have after they met up with a group of friends. Kind of turns it on her. She's kind of looking for him to just talk with her, and then he kind of makes her apologize. And it's just, that seemed really real to me. I think that's the thing that does happen in relationships. Was the flip over the car. That's just something simple that, for some reason, that made me feel tense, even though it's just moving the camera.
What are your guys' thoughts on the climax of this movie? Like, just the ending, how it all wraps up.
Our climax or Christian's climax?
There we go.
God.
That's sort of where the film lost me, and I knew like that it wasn't going to be a film I liked, because I was like, come on, like it just felt pointless when they got to those differing, like, oh hey, they're going somewhere, they're going the other way. Christian's doing this thing, which I don't know.
You like the dance scene.
But I'm saying after the dance scene, like as soon as she's crowned, I was like, I don't like this movie.
But you said you liked that scene, so why is that the point where you...
Because they immediately like switch it. They go back to the dinner, and I don't know. There's just something that felt off, like in what they were doing there. And then I just didn't like the character like plotting and where they went with them after that scene, because I think they could have done it a lot better and won Danny over even more, because obviously she's on their side when she's the May Queen, but I think they try to alienate her almost with like all these rituals they're trying to get her to do, instead of keeping her happy. But I like the clap. I do like that. It's a good scene.
The clap.
Yeah.
I think this is another small moment when there could have been a really interesting connection that they just didn't make. So they clearly manipulated it so that Danny would be the May Queen. They clearly basically drugged and tricked Christian into mating with this woman in this weird ritual, and then he immediately is dead. So they have like contrived this situation where she will be the May Queen and he will father some child, but then he immediately dies, and they basically make that happen. So again, this is a thing where I'm like, why? Why did they bring this guy in to produce some baby and then immediately kill him? He's clear. They
don't care about him. They just need a scene.
But why him?
Yeah,
they clearly did it on
anybody.
Because no. But they did say explicitly.
No,
they said you're a perfect match for her.
She chose them.
Yeah, she chose them. But it was her choice.
It's all.
But was it something to do with like where he came from, who he was, like anything like that?
And connected with the fact that they clearly wanted his girlfriend to be the one to be the May Queen and then kill him. Yeah. What's that about?
See,
I think
that might be
to get her away from
this isn't explained, but that could have also been part of like Pele. Pele clearly liked her, right?
Yeah,
it could have been Pele's like if she's gonna be like the one to survive.
But
I want it to be
they should
her.
have done like one creepy shot of him,
Yeah.
like in the back. You know what I mean?
I thought they were gonna have that, and they never did.
Yeah, if they're that's what I mean. Like these tiny connections can be done in like a 3-second shot, and if they had done that, I would have totally bought it. I would be like, this makes sense. But
well, they do explain in the very end at the last ritual when they're about to fill up the yellow triangle. They say that they thank Pele and his brother for bringing the quote. They say thank you, Pele, for bringing us our May Queen this year.
But if you remember to the very beginning, like she was never going in the first place. Her Christian was just like, come, but and then right before they walk, they're like, oh, also, they don't know, like They weren't the ones who invited you, but I'll make it work.
So what was their plan before she was going to be the May Queen?
Yeah, it was just going to be a bunch of
Yeah.
guys there. That's what I'm saying.
And Connie. Was Connie going to be?
They needed a guy and
Oh,
4 people to kill. They
you know,
didn't really need her.
Maybe it could have been. Maybe looking back at that line where, what's it? Pele's brother, where he's like, "Oh, we dated beforehand." Maybe that's supposed to be the creepy line, like, "Oh, if Danny wouldn't have come, like they would have gotten Connie as a May Queen." However, I'm not going to be the one to say it, but I guess I do. The community is primarily white, so I don't know if they would necessarily cling to Connie as a May Queen. Also, when you see like all the previous May Queens, they're all white as well.
Well, I'm willing to go out and say I think a large majority of Sweden is white.
No, but I'm
Probably.
saying I don't know how they would be accepting of like Connie, because they seem very into like, oh hey, like you have to be this person like to mate with this person, and you have to like be of certain like traits and all this stuff. But I think what Josh was saying a second ago is very important. I think you could have changed and rewritten that scene where instead of this pastor figure stuffing the boyfriend into the bear, you could have Pele doing it, and you could have him saying something like, "You never treated her right. Like you were always doing these wrong things. Like you were talking about leaving her, and her family died. Like, do you know?"
Well, Pele didn't come.
That
Pele-
was pretty on the nose.
I think Pele didn't bring
He
them
would've
there
at least-
to kill them. I think he brought them there because it's part of the ritual. I don't think he intentionally hated those people.
I think the reason he connected with Danny is their community of emotional openness. When someone feels something, they all start trying to feel the same exact thing.
But he's taking jabs at the boyfriend the whole time. Like he says,
Yeah.
"Oh, he forgot the birthday," when he knows perfectly well that he forgot. Like I think Pele knows before bringing that up that he's already.
I think
forgot
that's
about
because
the
he
birthday.
likes Danny, not that he hates Christian.
I think he's trying to separate her from Christian.
Because he
So I
likes
think
Danny.
You can have a line at the end. I don't think he likes Christian.
He may not like him, but that doesn't give him an incentive to murder someone. I think it's part of a ritual. I don't think he brought him there to murder
Or
him.
it
I
could
think
be either. Could you? I think we're. No, I think this is a good situation. No, you don't think so?
No.
Okay.
It doesn't feel. This is what I mean. It doesn't feel to me. It doesn't feel ambiguous. It feels underdeveloped. Yeah, because it all seems once they get there, everything is supposed to feel so intentional and contrived. All of the other women intentionally fall down, so Danny is the May Queen. But then when you remember, she's there by coincidence. That she wasn't part of the plan. But you know what I mean? Like that's the logic. I think switches once they get there. Once they get there, it all seems it was all on purpose. She was always going to be the May Queen, and he was always going to be the one in the bear after mating with the other person. But she could have not been there. And then what happens to the movie? There's just I think there's a slight logic disconnect between like
I can
the
understand
first
that.
30 minutes and the rest.
I think since you guys also complained about this, but we don't know what their scriptures and rituals are, so I don't think we can know. But if that's underdeveloped, all right. But either way.
Between the five of us, Evan, what do you give it out of 10?
Oh, I guess none.
Okay, gotcha. Do you want to do decimals or just 9? Okay, gotcha.
8.7.
Or none.
Which
8.7 is fine.
I'm
Austin,
gonna give a decimal. Just say what you would score.
8.7.
I'm gonna go an 8.0.
I would give it a 7.7.
Yeah, we're still good. I'd probably go like 4.3-ish. JD, what would you go with?
I'm gonna give it a 6.5 out of 10.
Then yeah, I'll average those at the end and put like a little graphic.
Can we do it right now?
Here's
I have an 8 at 16.7.
7.04.
How come you didn't give it a 10?
7.04.
And who said that? I already
Seven
did the math.
7 is the average. So check out.
That kind of lines up with online reviews.
Yeah, I was surprised on Letterboxd because when I initially got out of the theater, it was something like a 3.6, and then I checked the night after, and it was like a 4.1 or something like that. So I was surprised it took that much of a spike. I think it's going to level back out, but
Can I revise my score to an 80.0 after 100, please?
but that's our episode. Thank you again, JD, for coming on.
Thank you for having me. This is great.
What it do,
You
baby?
guys know what I call it? A24? It takes 24 hours to make.
Last thing, is there any way to edit this one last thing into the podcast?
What one last thing?
I love their little thing. That was so creepy to me.
I don't want to edit that into.
Oh,
right there.
come on.
I love their.
I'll have that at the end.
That was
of it.
creepy,
I'll have
right?
it at the end of the video.